So before we start threading, I want to show you how to get the serger, to set the serger up for threading. And right now, I just want to point out that before I shot this video, I was working on a cover hem for a different project, and I've got my cover hem needles in there, and I've disengaged my upper looper. So this is really important. If you've been playing around with, engaging and disengaging the upper looper, for example, if your upper looper is disengaged, the connecting tube isn't going to snap in place when you rotate the hand wheel unless, Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to show you how to get the serger ready for threading. So before we actually thread the thread into the tension and use the air feeding system, we're going to get the machine ready. Before I shot this, I was working on a cover hem for another project. So I've got my cover hem needles in there and I've got my upper looper disengaged. Well, if I switch this to threading, I just want to show you what will happen. So I'm going to switch it to threading. And I'm going to turn the hand wheel towards me to connect the tubing and watch what happens. I'm going to do it really slowly. Watch over here. Turning it towards me. Okay, notice that the upper looper is not moving because it's disengaged. Okay, so what I want to show you is, see how it's engaged this tube right here, and it's also engaged this tube right here. This tube is for the chain looper. Notice right here, this is where the upper looper threads, and see how it's not attached to anything? All right, so I just wanted to point that out because if you put your machine in threading mode, turn the hand wheel towards you, and your upper looper is disengaged, it's not going to thread. So the first thing you want to do, I'm going to just switch back to serging for a second, is re-engage your upper looper. So how do you do that? You switch this knob to up, and I'm going to turn the hand wheel. Watch what happens. Now the upper looper is engaged. See how it's going up and down? Okay, so now I'm ready to put my serger in threading mode. Okay, so I'm going to switch it to threading, and then I'm going to turn my hand wheel, which you can see it in the corner of the video right here. I'm going to turn that towards me to connect those tubes. So let's watch what happens this time. All right, so now you can see what happened is back here, the upper looper tube is now connected and engaged. So now I can thread my upper looper. Okay, so I already have my threads positioned through the antenna guides. Those are the guides on top of the thread stand. I think in the previous video I just called them thread guides. They're the antenna thread guides because they're on top of the antenna of the thread stand. I'm going to turn over to page 20 now. I want to point out that I have my presser foot raised. That's really, really important. When your pressure foot is raised, the tension units are open, okay? And then when you're threading your machine, the thread can seat in between the tension discs. When you put your presser foot down, it closes on the thread, and that's how you get good tension. So make sure your presser foot is up, okay? And I have that up. All right, so I'm going to start with the lower looper, and basically I'm going to thread this machine from right to left. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to move this way. So because I'm doing video and I've got this positioned and cropped for the top of the machine, I'm going to thread all of the spools right to left through the pre-tension unit and bring them down to the front of the machine. And then what I'm going to do is change my position of my camera so you can see what's going on in front of the machine. It's just hard. I want to show it up close, so I want to crop in really tight. So I'm going to start with my lower looper, and I'm going to get my thread, and basically I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to put it behind the pre-tension unit, and I'm going to snap it in place. Did you hear that snap? Okay, and then I'm just going to bring it down like this through the tension unit, and I'm going to leave that there for the moment. Then I'm going to get my upper looper, and I'm going to do the same thing. Get ready to hear the snap. Do you hear that? That's how I know, see, it's securely positioned in the pre-tension unit. Then I'm going to bring it, down through the tension unit like this. I'm going to leave it in the front. Then I'm going to do my my needle 2. Again, listen for the snap. I'm just going to bring that down, and then I'm going to get my 01 needle. Okay? All right, now let me show you what's going on in front of the machine. All right, so just to keep it clutter-free, I'm just going to trim my needle threads short, and I'm going to trim my upper looper thread short so it's not in the way. I'm going to work with my lower looper. And again, if you're threading this at home, you can do the entire lower looper first. I just wanted to get all my threads in my pre-tension unit while I had the camera trained on that. So now I'm going to take this thread and I'm going to hold it from behind the pre-tension unit, and I'm just going to floss it back and forth a couple times to make sure it's seated in the tension unit. And then I'm going to put it behind this guide. Okay, so it slips behind that little metal guide right there. And then it's time to put it in the port. Now these holes right here are the thread ports, and we're going to do the L port for lower looper first. So essentially you want to make sure you have several inches of thread loose. Okay, so I'm going to have probably like from here to here loose, because when you press the air feed system, it's going to whoosh the thread through, and if there's no slack, it's not going to, the air system's not strong enough to pull it through the tension unit and off the spool. And then I'm just going to stick the tail of the thread into the port. Just get it in there about, as far as you can, quarter, half inch. And then I'm going to press the thread button. Now, it's very interesting what happens, because you can literally see it whooshing through. Ready? See how it came out over here? That's amazing. All right, now let's get the upper looper. And again, I'm just going to floss it back and forth just to make sure it's seated properly. Then I'm going to get my slack, about that much, and I'm going to put the thread tail in the port labeled U for upper looper. And then I'm going to make sure nothing is tangled. The slack is nice and ready to go. I'm going to press the button. So watch it shoot out over here. Ready? Isn't that amazing? It works really, really well. That's it for the thread path down here. Because I'm finished threading my loopers, I can switch this back to serging, because I want to be able to rotate my needles, and actually I have to take these needles out and put them in the overlock position, because I currently have them in the cover hem position. But that's very cool, because I'm going to show you how to use this fabulous lint brush needle holder. So I'm going to show you how to use that as we do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch this back to serging. And notice that the tubes retract back into the machine, and now I can turn the hand wheel. All right, and I just want to point out that the lower looper thread, which is the yellow thread, that should be laying on top of the upper looper like this. So see how it rubs along the top of the upper looper? That's correct. All right, that'll make it feed properly and create the stitch properly. So those are all set. Now I'm going to work with these needles, and just to keep it clear, I'm going to move the presser foot out of the way. That just gives me a little bit more room. I'm going to make sure the needles are in the highest position possible. And I'm going to take this lint brush where the hole is, and I'm going to insert it into the needle like that. Okay, so see how I've got it inserted? Then I'm going to use my Allen wrench, and I'm just going to loosen the screw like that until I can take out the needle. Having it in the lint brush handle like that keeps it from dropping into the machine. All right, so there's one. Now I'm going to loosen the second one. All right, and see how that's a nice safety, and the needle doesn't fall into the machine? All right, so now I'm going to just tighten those cover hem needle screws a little bit. I don't want them to vibrate out of the machine. So I'm just going to tighten those down a little bit so they're securely in there. Then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to insert it in the overlock needle 1 and 2 positions. Those are in the back over here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just line that up. Okay. All right, see how I pressed it up? And then the other thing is I've got the tip of the needle up here. I can see it, the very top. I know it's inserted all the way. Before I remove my lint brush, I'm going to just tighten that down so I know it's in there properly. Okay, then I can remove my lint brush handle. And I'll get my second needle in there. Okay, and again, you want to make sure that the flat side of the needle is facing the back. And I'm just going to get it right up there next to the first one. And I'm just going to guide it up in there and see how I can see the top of the needle. Oops. And then I'm just going to tighten that down. All right, so that's how you put the needles in using this fabulous little tool. I love it. Now I've got my needles in the right place. The last step to threading this serger is to thread the needles, and I'm going to start with the 02 needle, and I've got my little tail cut short here, and I'm just going to drag it through there, under this plastic guide, and up and over there. And now I'm going to get my 01 needle underneath the guide, under there, and over there. All right, so now I've got my 2 threads ready to go. The last step is you want to get it behind the thread guide. And see this little hook right here? You're going to put it behind there like this. Okay, so see how it tucks down and under? Let me do that again for the right needle. I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to tuck it behind. Okay, so that way this little guide that's in the front will keep it from sliding around, but it's really behind this one as well. And that's how it's going to direct the thread right above the needle. See how the thread can lay right against the needle now because I've got the thread in these thread guides properly. You have to bring it up and over. Let me do it again. Taking the thread and tucking it under there like that from the front. And then when I tighten it up, it's right there. And then they're right there. Okay, so next week when I show you how to adjust the stitch length and width and play with differential feed, I'm also going to show you how to use the needle threader. I'm trying to keep these videos short and sweet, so that's going to be it for today. If you have any questions or comments, you can visit my blog at JStern Designs, or you can post a comment below. I just want to note that starting next week, most of the information that are going to be included in these videos can apply to any make or model. So stitch length and width, and differential feed is the first topic, and you can apply it to any serger that you own. So I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week on Tuesday.